Why do I read?
I live in two worlds. One is a world of books.
For me, it's books, books, books.
The mind needs books like a sword needs a whetstone.
I guess people like to read about the things that they want most and experience the least.
Books feed me.
Once upon a time.
I read it in a book once.
Is this a kissing book?
I don't care. I'm not ashamed of my book.
It's not right for a woman to read. Soon she starts getting ideas and thinking.
I checked this out weeks ago, forbidden like reading.
Books! You have never interested me more.
I have many leather-bound books, and my apartment smells of rich mahogany.
Now, when you read, don't just consider what the author thinks. Consider what you think.
I love that book.
I hated that book.
How can you read this? There's no pictures.
Don't read this book.
Those books are good. This might be the best book I've ever read.
I'm gonna go read.
Go ahead, read.
Why do I read? I read because this world is modeled after me.
Did you get wine?
I did get wine.
Do you find a glass?
I found a coffee cup. I have a coffee cup, and it's clean. It's also clean. Yeah, I cannot keep a wine glass from breaking. It's impossible.
Oh no.
It isn't. No, it's impossible. Let me tell you the story. Jared was taking something out of the cabinet with the wine glasses, and he knocked one of my long stems over, and it smashed all over the counter in the ground. When he was pulling it out, he just knocked it with his arm. And then I was just standing there oh, and they were brand new. Brand new. Just washed them, just put them up there. And then he said, "Did you see what I did?" And then he said, "I was just reaching up there, and then it fell out, and he did the exact same motion that he did, and it knocked another glass out onto the floor." And we were both just standing there, and he just looked at me, and then I just started laughing because it was the most ludicrous. But yeah, I don't have wine glasses. I can't.
I'm gonna send you some.
No, I need some without stems because I'm Axton Brown.
Okay, stemless ones, but Michael has these ones. They're it's a wine glass, or it's shaped like a wine glass, but it has a little indent for your thumb or your finger, which is nice. But it's plastic, so it's impossible to break. But it looks and feels like a wine glass.
Oh, I cannot wait to get your plastic kid-proofed wine glass in the mail. Can't tell you how excited I am.
It's better than a coffee cup.
Does it have a smiley face on it?
No, it's just this is a real story. The first time I went over to his house when he got those, because he was needing some, and he went to hand it to me and then dropped it on purpose, and I was like, "Oh no!" And then it just bounced around the floor, and he was like, "Eh."
That is so funny.
Oh my god. Okay, so I needed, like I was saying earlier, I need to get the tabby things for next time, but I took notes, but
I use literal paper clips.
That's great. And it's occurring to me now that most of the notes I kept, because I filled this up in
Oh my gosh, you're so pretty.
Oh, thank you.
Notes are so. Oh my god, you're disgusting. I hate you.
What?
Look at mine. It's everywhere. And I'm I ran out of space, so I started just writing the page numbers for the quotes to go back later.
Well, see, and I'm so anal, I want everything to look nice. So when I ran out of room, I just started I have a thing on my phone that I started taking notes with.
We are so different.
Thanks. This is such a fun.
I'm not as uniformed as you, so I didn't actually write down my quotes. I highlighted them in my book and then put paper clips in here and made it 10 times harder for myself. So I have to just kind of like read them in random order because I don't have a sorry, I'm not very uniformed.
That's fine. We're talking about The Thick and the Lean by Chana Porter. This was your pick for this month.
This is my pick, and I picked it. I was at this little local bookshop, and I was really drawn to the cover, which is gorgeous. The cover is gorgeous. I was just like, oh my gosh, the cover is just so beautiful. And then I read the back, and it was kind of a dystopian theme, and I was like, that sounds really interesting. And I think the basic gist that I got, the thinner you are, the closer to God you are.
Yeah. That was my biggest takeaway from the jacket too, because it sounds a lot like that the Way Down cult in the East. Did you hear about that? I watched the whole documentary about it.
Bet you did.
When Tamblyn, and it was like, that was her, like, she literally made like a multi-level marketing cult / church with that exact premise, which I feel like that was the least I got out of this book. Like, I feel like that was like the main thing, and then it became like the least. I don't know, it was very different than I expected it to be.
Okay, just FYI, spoiler alert in effect. We are going to talk about all of the things. Nothing's off limits, so if you haven't read the book, pause it, go read it, and then come back. Or if you don't plan on reading it, just listen to us talk all about it, and then you can feel like you've read it.
And also, we're going to talk about all of the things.
All of the things. There is adult content in this book, and we will be discussing it.
Did you like the book?
Did I like it? Kind of. I wanted to love it, but I didn't love it. I liked it because of mine and our history with church and the way that people can manipulate through the church, and and kind of turn it into a cult. Slowly over time, and I really connected with those themes in the book. So because I connected with them, I enjoyed the book. I enjoyed reading it. I mean, it wasn't a page turner, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
But I liked reading it.
I did not love this book. I honestly, if we hadn't been reading it together, I would have DNF'd it. But having gone through the whole thing, reading this book was like having sex with no orgasm. Like, parts were so good, and you're like, oh, okay, what's going on here? And it's like, I'll get you next time. Like, wait, it's starting to get good. Where are you going? Did you feel that way at all?
If you're are you referring to the spice, like the sex?
No, just everything in general, because like every time I felt like something was starting to happen, it would just stop and then go to the other character, and then it was like never revisited.
Yeah, I thought the pacing of the book was weird.
Like, honestly, like off. This whole thing to me feels like it feels like an outline for the book. This feels like it should have been a trilogy or something, where like, because I feel like it was such an intriguing concept and like dystopian world, but you still didn't really get the gist of it. Like, the world building was confusing and incomplete to me, and there was just so much there to tap into that I felt was so untapped. Like, you create this like really fascinating world, and it was just very like scratching the surface of what it would be to me. And I felt that a lot of the characters were kind of one-dimensional.
I wrote in my notes, more of a dystopian study than a captivating story. That's what I wrote. I did
a lot
think
of notes of like. Sorry, I interrupted you.
No, you didn't. No, you didn't. I mean, that was it. That was my thought.
Well, and then like some of it took me a second to get into, especially in the beginning, because I will preface all of this with the caveat of like science fiction is not something I generally enjoy. There are exceptions to this rule. So anything that sounds too sci-fi just kind of pulls me out of it. But like some of the terminology for the
this is very, I mean, this author is very she sees things in a very interesting way.
Like free walk, like that, like forever palace, like candle people. Like it just they sounded like placeholders until she actually thought of what she wanted to call things, and then it just stayed that way.
Okay, comment about the Freewa people in this book. She kept referring to the fact that they had a prominent forehead ridge,
like an alien, like where, like what?
Like a big, like a boo. Like it, and my question was, is that like in their genetics, or is it something they put on the skin?
Sounds like something bigger? It sounds like it's like a specific race of people. But see, this is what I mean. Like you have all these questions, like okay, interesting, but like explain.
Well, here's the thing though, like she never establishes this book as being a fantasy setting. It's dystopian, like how we would be way in the future if something were to happen. There's nothing supernatural going on. It's just like the people in their society for the most part.
But then it's not our world at all, because then you go like, especially towards the end, like the kitchen is supposed to be like this is the history of this world. And then she even like references people like the Ahinga people, and she references them a lot but doesn't explain anything about them or any sort of context. Ahinga.
I put as a note for the book, would make a world of difference if the author would place names of characters before chapters.
Yeah.
Because she doesn't, in the writing, like I felt that she didn't really establish whose mind we were in very quickly within the chapter. And so you're like, wait, who is this? Like you're reading like a whole page and a half and you still don't know whose head you're in, because she doesn't preface or make any references to what's going on around.
Yeah. And it's also like you're right. And I felt like I wrote that sometimes the writing seems really disjointed and not cohesive. Like, what does this scene have anything to do with what's happening? Like there was a lot of times like there was like a super random page worth of words, and I'm like, okay, what does this word salad have to do with anything about this scene? Like what was the point of that? And then
I think that she used like the meals and the cooking and the descriptions of cooking and eating the food as a reference, the warring of it. So like I felt like it as a society, a lot of things that she did was people replaced food, the desire to eat food in a gluttonous way or to eat for flavor or for pleasure is taboo, but the society then in turn just redirected that desire into like sex.
Right. That was one of the things that I wrote. Let me find it.
I wrote sexual promiscuity is not an issue in this time, because over time sex becomes so accepted and desensitized that people ignore the idea of monogamy and sexual orientation. Gay or straight does not exist. People have sex openly with all genders and also in public. Most entertainment is sexualized, swapping food for more sex. It's like they need to find an outlet. Like there has to be an outlet.
Right. Yeah. I wrote like the contrast of like the typical taboo versus food being the taboo is like a really interesting juxtaposition, and like obviously it's so opposite of now. Like granted, like we have a lot of sexualized things in our society, but it's not like, oh, like there's a couple girls eating each other out on the lawn. This is totally normal.
Oh my God, how hilarious is her descriptions about sex?
Like, eat me, eat me, eat me. Like, what woman has ever said that? I want to know. If it's you, please let us know. We don't judge you, but you know.
She referenced that like all of the shows on television, sex and nudity and like people having sex, like on the TV, and it was totally normal. And like there was even one where she went into a description about the show where it was like
the biker dominatrixes.
I'm sorry, my dog's throwing up.
Oh no.
Go clean that up in a second. But I forgot what I was saying.
The shows that they watch on TV.
Oh, she was talking about how like there was the granny. Did you fuck this granny?
Right? Or like the one called Boy Me, in which they're like biker dominatrixes that like and they're all like crying like, oh, that was amazing. She beat the hell out of me.
You know what it makes me think? I think to myself, like, does she think about sex this way? Or is this like part of the
like, what is
that's
the opposite
trying
way?
to make it seem like it's desensitized in the culture?
Yeah. Well, and okay, so it was very Scientology-y. Like even like the names, like Seagate and Scientology is called Seagate.
You know what? I made that connection too. I was like, that's
like the whole Seagate thing is like super is basically Scientology, because they have to work and all their money belongs to the church, and so it's like not the most original, but you know. But so I was so like when I read the first chapter, I was super into it. Like I was like, ooh, this is so fascinating. Like it like opens up, like there's like and it just like brought me back to our church days with like lock-ins at the church.
Oh my God, they're fun.
So fun.
Yeah,
but in this version, it wasn't like laser tag and like hide and seek in the dark. It was like, okay, well, the nuns are going to leave and you all just have outer sex with each other and just explore your bodies. We're just going to be in the other room. Like, wow. I was like, okay, this is so fascinating.
I actually think that that's a really interesting concept. Because like you look at the difference between like how society views like homosexuality, how differently it is now than when we were kids.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a massive difference. And you almost wonder a couple hundred years in the future, will it be that way? Will people not even reference what sex you are? It'll just nobody will care about it because it's no step by it. It's just a natural thing. Like it's not.
That's the thing I did write down, is that I liked the queer normative. Like it's like it wasn't a big deal. It's like you could be bi, you could just be one or the other, but it wasn't something that was a big deal. And it's like also all right, well, I'll get into that one later when we actually get into actual quotes, because all of the sex. So like,
oh my God. Oh, hey guys, whoever's listening, if anybody ever does listen, this book has a lot of sex and it's not spicy.
No, it's not good sex. It's just like, what's happening? Like what, like, okay, I
thought it was interesting how the society was obviously, and one thing I did like is that you went through time really quickly in the book. And so at the beginning, it's really the beginning of these girls' journeys. And at the end, it's like way later in their lives. So I thought it was kind of interesting how the religious factor progressed over time. It stopped being people just living in their houses and eating bland food. and like starving themselves, it became, we're going to live on a commune and then you're going to work and we'll pay you, but we have our own stores that you buy everything from. And it kind of reminded me of those like shanty town from the Great Depression, from the Four Winds.
Yeah.
You know how they went to the plantation and they worked there and they had to work there. Like there were no other jobs and they were going to starve to death.
Yeah.
But they also had to live there on the plantation and they had to buy everything
from the market. Yeah.
And it was like way hiked up and they would just like, it was just a big cycle until all of a sudden you're so in debt. They give you everything, but they charge you for everything.
Yeah.
And you have to like work it off, but it's impossible. Like you never make enough money to work it off.
Yeah. Except in this scenario, they don't feel like they need to work off anything. So like we just get to be here and they give us everything. So it's all fine and good. Like, why wouldn't we want that? One thing I wrote, and granted, this was like early on, and this was like kind of before she had established, kind of like the sections, like the Bastion, Low Quake, Middle, and Above, which is still a little confusing to me. But like the descriptors, like very early in the book, she said things like her feet didn't touch the ground for 4 years. I'm like, can she levitate? Like, do people have magic here? Like, explain what you mean. But it was just like one of those like random things that's just like popped in and then never referenced again. And this was before she had established what like the tiers were. And I'm like, she's a dancer who's trained for 40 years that's never touched the ground in 4 years. Are people carrying her? Like, does she have powers? Is she on a hoverboard? Like, what do we mean? What do you mean? Explain. Like this, I'm interested, but like, explain what you mean.
Yeah, I felt like some of the writing was disjointed. She just writes in a way that sometimes is very confusing for such a complicated world.
Very confusing. And also I felt like this book didn't know what it wanted to be. I thought that so many times through the book. We're in a dystopian futuristic place that's not even Earth, because it never references Earth, and obviously there's 2 moons, so it's definitely a planet that's not Earth.
Oh, 2 moons? I missed that.
Yeah, like in the beginning.
You want to
and
know
like,
why I missed it though? Because my mind drifted a lot when I was reading.
Yeah, it took me a while to get through this book. But then, so you have all of this, but then all of their lore is very like medieval sounding, like the Night Witch defeated the king. I'm like, okay, are we in fantasy now? Like, where are we? Pick a lane.
Well, I definitely I would not
just
say this was a fantasy book.
No, but lore sounds like when you get into like the kitchen girl sections, it sounds like more of like a medieval time.
Yes.
In it. And like things like being called like the Night Witch is just something that you'd normally, envision as like a fantasy thing. Also, did you laugh out loud when they were having their church service and the pastor was wearing a hawk costume with wings? Like with that, I was like, he's wearing a costume, but then
like the visual of that is hilarious. I just picture him.
And like at one point he just like shouts out, he's like, he spread his wings and said, "Precarity!"
What does that word even mean, precarity?
Like,
what does that mean?
Like if something is like precarious, like, oh, we're on the edge of something terrible. Precarity!
Oh.
But like, and he's just yelling that with his hawk wings and his like beak over his face, like in church. Like, and then, like, I could not with that.
Okay, first of all, how did you pronounce the girl's name? I said, in my head, I made it Riku.
Of course you would. I pronounced it Reiko.
Okay, well, I couldn't, my brain just kept doing it. So I was just like, okay, it's Riku. But it's, well, what do you think it is? Like, how it's, I was like, how do you really even pronounce that?
Well, I did the exact same thing you did and said Riku first, but then I immediately Googled how do you pronounce Reiku.
Sometimes I never go to Google for pronunciation. Never. I
know that like, most fantasy books you can't really much.
Fantasy books are so ridiculous. Like I'm like, I can't remember all of these fake things with complicated names. I just can't.
All right, one thing that I wrote down.
Oh wait. Do you like towards the end of the book, like what I was saying with Riku or Reiko or whatever.
Reiko.
She got shot.
Yeah.
She gets shot. She changed her name to Claudia, but she doesn't tell you.
Right.
It's that for a very long time. So you're like, wait, she's talking about things that only a few people saw. Her name's Claudia. And do you know what I did? I actually went back through the book to see if I missed a Claudia somewhere.
Yeah, what my first thought was when I got to part 3 and like we're like 70% of the book at this point, and I wrote down okay, so now a new POV with Claudia, like now there's a new person in the game, like isn't it a bit late to introduce a new character? And then like after a while I'm like, oh, it's Reiko. It's definitely Reiko, but like that was not clear for a while.
Oh my god!
And also like felt more interesting. What?
You want to know my note about that? I'm gonna read it. I have totally, and this was before I figured out who it was, but it was Rico. I wrote down, I have totally forgotten who Claudia and Martin are. I said, by page 263, I have totally forgotten who Claudia and Martin are. And then under that, I said, geez, author changes names of main characters and doesn't mention it? Question mark. I was so annoyed because, like, I went all the way through the book looking for Claudia, just like fingering where did I miss it? I was so annoyed.
Well, and like what annoyed me too, this is what I mean about everything being disjointed and unsatisfying, is because she sets up Beatrice and Reiko with these like really interesting backstories. And then once their story actually starts getting going, she just stops and then like, oh, we'll fast forward, and you just like skip all the parts that make their story interesting. Right. And then you just get like a Cliff Notes version of like, yeah, I've just been running the restaurant and now like I'm a chef and everybody was coming to my restaurant. Like you didn't get to see her journey into that. And then like with Reiko, discovers like, okay, school's bullshit. Like they've revoked my scholarship, and she invents this like thing. And then we immediately don't get to see what happens for a while. Like, and then she like becomes a thief and like falls in love with Keith. And then immediately that's like done. And then she's shot, and then you're like, oh no, what's going to happen? And then it's like 11 years later, except we don't know.
11 years later, we have Claudia. Who's that?
Yeah, it's like, why does, like, okay, like, and then we eventually find out, like, oh yeah, it was easy to fake my death and blah, blah. I'm like, okay, like, couldn't we have seen that?
About, like, you can tell that she really loves Keith or whatever, like, deep down, like, in her heart. But, like, it never explains what happened in their relationship to why they broke up. And then, even though she's always thinking, like, oh, Keith, I love him so much, she still, the first thing she does, it says, the first thing that she does when she gets all of that money is hire guys to beat the crap out of him.
Right. So, like, why didn't we get to see, like, the fallout of that? Like, because the last thing we see, like,
your thoughts, like, why did you decide to do that? I would have liked to have seen inside of her thoughts when she was deciding to do that, why she decided to do that.
Like, it leaves us on that cliffhanger of, like, she's shot, she's bleeding out on the floor, they're in the house with guns now, like, it leaves you on that cliffhanger, and then we just never get back to that build up. And it's like, again, it's like the sex with no, like, oh, this is getting so good. It's like, next time you don't get the rest. But you liked it, I'll tell you that much. Like, no, like, give us, like,
out of all the stories, my favorite was Beatrice.
Really?
I liked her story the most. I don't know why. I think it was because, like, she started out in a really religious, strict, and, like, chose to get out of that and get away from that and, like, stand up for herself. And then she, like, built a life doing what she dreamed.
Yeah.
And I really liked her character, like, in her, when she was in her head. Those were my favorite chapters, the ones with Beatrice.
I definitely liked Beatrice more than Reiko's chapters, though I found the Kitchen Girl chapters to be more interesting than both combined. Like, I could have read a whole book of just that story.
Yeah, I was really craving those chapters by the time they came out.
But I think, like, it could have been like a trilogy where we actually get to play out these stories in a more expanded way. It felt like the Cliff Notes version of each story. Like, all the ideas are there. It was just not well executed. Like, I wanted to like it more because it was so.
I think it was in a study of, like, a dystopian kind of study way. It was great, but it was completely different than what I thought it was going to be going in.
Same.
Yeah.
One thing I wrote down, like Beatrice is supposedly falling for Georgina in a new lovemaking experience, but it's described as we were like animals rutting in the dirt. It's so abrupt like that. Like, oh, we went into the fields and, like, we were like animals and rutted in the dirt. And that was it. That was it for that scene. But then afterwards, Beatrice is so moved by it, and she's like crying, and she's like, I've never had sex, like, it's like I've never had sex before. I'm in love with her. Like, wow, that rutting in the dirt was so romantic. Like, I'm just like, where's the connection between Georgina and Beatrice? Like, you don't feel any of the, like, why are they falling in love with each other? And then obviously
also,
they're
never told you what happened to Georgiana.
Yeah, they never.
Yeah,
that's
she just like you never find out what happened to her parents, to the parents. You never find out about any of the side characters, what happens. You don't even find out what happens to the main characters.
Right, and right when she finally gets a call from her dad, I'm like, okay, something's happening. Like, I'm really interested to see where this dynamic goes with her family. And then again, that's it. We never hear about them again. She never really talks about them. I also felt that based on what we knew from Beatrice and the relationship she had with her parents, because her parents seemed not as hardcore as a lot of the other people. Like, they still ate food together, which is something not a lot of families did. So they just seemed, or were, like, painted like they were a really close family unit. And it didn't make sense to me that Beatrice would just leave without even having an attempt at a conversation with her mom or her dad, considering how close she was to them. Like, it just felt very abrupt, like her wanting to leave.
Well, yeah. Well, I think that the reason that she wanted to leave, though, was justified in why she left, because it was like,
it just seemed like,
we're going to put an implant in you against your will that makes you not.
They never actually said that to her. Like, they hadn't even talked about the implant yet, because it was just something that they had talked about creating.
Well, so I think it was like she knew it was coming, though, and she wanted to get ahead of it. She was like, I have to get away from that.
I get that. It just seemed like, again, everything just seems like abrupt, and then move on, and then we never go back to it through the whole book.
Yeah.
I personally just would have enjoyed some dialogue with her family, because it seemed like they were very close, and it just the way that she kind of, like, felt out Georgina with the food and what she wanted to do. Like, I just expected her to have kind of that same conversation with her parents, or her mom at least. Just kind of feeling it out, like, what would you...
What happened when they found out that she was eating? They said that she had to go to like a Jesus camp to get better.
I have a couple more notes. At one point I wrote, we're over halfway through and I still don't know where the story's going. And I wrote the ending, ... okay. What was the point? There was no resolution or real conclusion to anything.
Sorry, Chana. We didn't love it. I think that I liked it more than you did. I can tell that I did. Because at the end of the day, I was glad that I read it. Because it was just such an interesting dissection of an idea of how powerful religion can be.
No, and that's the thing. I did actually really enjoy some aspects of it. I think my frustration in the lack of fulfillment on my end. Okay. Hit me with one of your quotes.
Okay. I highlighted mine. So,
you defaced the book.
What?
I'm not a highlighter. I will never deface the book that way. We are different.
Well, it's mine. It's my book. Mine. I will do what I want with it. Highlighted. It can be difficult in its own way not to have anything to rebel against. I like that quote.
Yeah.
Your mind, and everything, you're yearning to have something to fight for.
Yeah.
And I think that's really true.
Yeah, I totally agree. That's a good one.
They create their own rebellions out of nothing, even.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Also,
Go
how
to it.
are the dividers of the parts, like the pages with all the food and the fruit?
The pages are really very pretty.
They're pretty.
My favorite quote of the book I wrote down is on page 249. This body was not decorative. It was not slight. It was not willowy. It was not thin. This body took up space. This body made things. This body was her home. I owe you an apology, she said into the mirror.
I really loved the way that she used the universe of the pressure of not eating to be a part of society, to be thin, to be a part of society, and the way that she broke it down to make a very clear message that that's not okay.
Yeah. Or everything being opposite. When they go to the mall, it's a sex court instead of a food court. And it's it's so weird. And we're going to wait for a clean room to open up. Ooh.
Okay, I got a quote.
Okay.
This is on page 53, if you're wondering. Bursting forth like a finger directly from the earth was a stalk of asparagus. She looked around. There were more dotting the grass of various lengths and thicknesses. Last book, thankfully, contained a few drawings, homey little sketches of women in headscarves, stirring bubbling pots around hearts, and she remembered the frilly little ridges on the head of the stalk, making it look like a skinny, malformed penis.
That one is definitely on my list too.
I knew we would have some duplicates.
I ever looked at asparagus and thought, that looks like a penis. I'm like, do you guys have a bunch of STDs? Because
I'm like, why this great, huge description of thinking, oh, wow, that looks like a dick.
But also, an asparagus does not look like if you've seen a penis that looks like an asparagus, you've got problems.
Well, I guess it is kind of the same shape. A bulb.
Like the shaft, if you will, with all the ridges and stuff. That sounds like an STD penis, not like a good one.
Okay.
But
she was actually thinking that dicks look like they have like ridges on them, like a dragon egg.
I don't. Well, I mean,
it looks like
reminds me of a skinny penis, and let me find it where I wrote it
as well, not just skinny, malformed.
Yeah, malformed, and I was like, well, maybe like all the threesomes are giving the kids STDs, but then like a little bit like when they're later. So here's one of my quotes. It's on page 81. They go to the sex court to wait for a private room. But Beatrice has the bumps right now in any case, so they were sticking to hands-only activities until the rash went away. I'm like, okay, so like all you guys do have STDs. With all the sex all these people are having, you would think that...
Yeah, but they call them STDs, they just refer to it as the bumps. Like, oh, we'll just wait a few days.
It doesn't occur to them that, like, the bajillion sexual... Also, am I the only one who...
If it has an STD, it doesn't really matter anymore.
Well, like, does it...
If you all have herpes, nobody fucking cares that the other person has herpes. But it's like, but if it's a rash and it's bumpy and it hurts, we gotta wait a while and do hand jobs. That's what
okay, I know. Page 49. While having a bit of intercourse with Peyton and Marty Zimmerman one afternoon, she glanced out the window and noticed a huge floppy sunflower gazing back at her. Like, just very casually having a threesome one day, but she's like clearly not that into it. But like also like, okay, a little bit of incest because these are brothers. Peyton and Marty Zimmerman were over one afternoon while having a bit of intercourse.
You know what? Maybe that's where the Freewa Ridge came from incest.
But she meant to say three-wa instead of free-wa. I see.
Hey.
Or I got a really good laugh out of her favorite hymn being "My Lord lifts me up like a hot air balloon."
What? That is so weird. As somebody who like grew up in a church and like had a very rough experience, like growing out of the church, it definitely gave me a little bit of PTSD at times.
Yeah,
like a little bit. Ugh, gross. And it's like that with anything that I watch about religion, cults, any of that stuff gives me that weird. And that's part of the reason I'm so fascinated by it, actually, too.
Yeah, exactly. It's like the weird taste in your mouth, but you also are like, wow, crazy.
Well, it's just something that only a certain group of people understand. You know what I mean? I mean, it's just that kind of experience doesn't happen to everybody.
Yeah. Like I have some friends who like have never gone to church in their lives, and I'll tell them things and they're like, what are you talking about? Like, what do you mean? And it boggles my mind that I'm like, this is a weird thing to have to explain to someone because it's such a weird thing, but then it also is weird to me to have somebody else like not know at all what I'm talking about.
Well, then, and also in turn, like you were at the beginning of shaping who you are today during that time and because of what happened from that time. And it's such a important part of your history, like as a person, at least to me it is. And, it's really difficult to like have that huge part of yourself that you can't share with other people, even people that you really love sometimes.
Or there's just things like no matter how much you explain, they're just never going to be able to truly understand. Like, even like little things, like silly things, like I could send you a music video of Carmen and you would laugh your ass off, and anybody else would be like, what is this? And like, you have no idea.
Oh yeah, how big of a deal this was. So, I mean, in a way, I'm really drawn to this kind of material, because it just, in a really weird way, it makes me feel like somebody else is getting where I'm coming from.
No, totally. I like half
Like,
of the
I
things
think
I watch are just like faulty docu-series now.
she is an amazing author in the way that she was able to create an environment like that I was able to relate to. That's how I feel about this book. It was very interesting, and you almost wonder, like, to us it doesn't make sense, but to the author does it make sense, like, for her to get the points across that she was trying to get across in her writing. Like, it's not about these in-between moments, like, these are the these are the defining moments.
Yeah.
Only the defining moments. And because, like, and it's true, every time she switches into another character, no matter what time period it is, no matter which chapter it is, you're transported to another state of mind and another big moment in that person's shaping. And that was kind of interesting to me. And now I didn't feel that way till the very end when I had finished the book. That's when those thoughts came to me. But like while I was reading, it was confusing. And
yeah, like it also felt like two different books in one, because
what would really help, I think what would really have just changed all of what I just said about the disjointedness would have easily been fixed by putting the date or the year,
yes,
at the top of each chapter so that you know where you are, and who you're talking to.
Yeah. Reiko's story and Beatrice's story were just so separate that it's like, why are they both in the same book? Like, maybe, did you ever feel that way?
Yeah, what I got from it was you're seeing the way that this society has affecting these two really different people that come from very different backgrounds and different beliefs and upbringings. I felt like she was trying to create contrast. Okay, I'm going to read a quote.
Okay.
This is on page 107. A litany of Bastian curses raced through her mind. Go fuck a goat, you son of a nun. I'll shit your milk. You've got assholes for eyes. Burn it all down, she yelled, punching one of Agatha's decorative sofa pillows.
Yes.
That is quite a paragraph.
Yeah. Oh, those are like the weirdest words to put together. Oh, okay. How about this one? Okay. Okay. Page 78. Beatrice squeezed her sweetheart's hand, pointing to a particularly festive array of tiny spoons designed to remove hard-to-reach earwax, next to long tapered candles and a huge bag of bath salts.
Spoons to get her earwax out.
Like that is the weirdest sentence I've ever read.
All right. I also did mark the pages with some of the recipes in them, like the 3-day mushroom soup and the pickle soup, the sour pickle soup.
I
think I'm gonna try and make the sour pickle soup.
Ooh, you have to let me know how that goes.
Because I was like, oh, I love pickles. I mean, I don't really like drinking the juice. You know, I'm not a pickle juice gal, but I like a good pickle.
Me too. Okay.
I could get that one on a silver fucking platter.
I mean, it was right there. I couldn't. Okay. This is a weird one. It was on page 31, and I just remember thinking, like, what? Okay. It took all of her self-control not to throw up her breakfast on the beautiful coiffed lawn.
Quaff?
Like a coiffed? How does one coif a lawn? Like a coif is a hairdo. Like how do you coif a lawn?
Of queef when you say that.
I know.
That immediately goes to vagina farts.
Right? Exactly. Like, but coiffed, like that's a hairstyle. Coiffed, like a coif, like a COIFF. A coif. Like that's like when they do that like little
Quaff.
like that's a hairstyle, not a lawn.
It does not help me picture it. You know, like it's quaffed, like the quaff.
Where your hair is like tied up in a little bun.
Yeah, the quaff.
The weirdest way to describe lawn.
Okay, I've got page 204. Anyway, she said with raised eyebrows, I'm too fat for church. I think you're lovely. He looked at her body frankly. Maybe we can have our own service. That's it. Her cunt gave a mighty kick. I wrote that one down too. I was like, oh my gosh, the words cunt, mighty, and kick are just too much. That sentence is too much.
I had that one too.
I laughed out loud.
I did that. I literally remember I'm like, I literally thought like Lita's going to write this down because
it's just preposterous to write that sentence.
Her cunt gave a mighty kick. Whoa, God, slow down there. There's a mighty kick in my pants.
What a kick in the pants.
So bad. Like, why?
Right, do you have?
Okay, here's one. This goes kind of hand in hand with this one. I'm like, why would you phrase it that way? This is when Reiko and Keith are having sex. And
their wonderful romantic encounter.
Yeah. But she also couldn't tell if it was over. He kept kissing her and kissing her armpits, her shoulders.
I didn't mark that, but I laughed when she said armpits.
Mapping her secret freckles and tonguing the edge of her ear.
Ew.
Like,
thick.
Oh my goodness, like, why would you, what a weird place of the body to insert in your, he just kept kissing me and kissing me. My armpits, like, my shoulders.
What a weird place to reference.
Like, Chana, do you get your armpits kissed often?
And of course, I think that, you know, these people are not the cleanest people. Like, I bet that her armpits were so hairy and so stinky.
Right?
Like,
why would you?
Having sex in the parks and, like, they're just rolling around on the ground in the dirt and not taking showers. Like, just.
Yeah.
Getting up and doing it all over again. Like,
and like some of them are like filming it for their like Insta followers. So like, I'm just gonna eat her out right here on the grass. Like, if you liked that, like, click and subscribe. Do you have another one?
I have like 4 left.
Okay, you go next.
Okay. This is on page 325. Starting the chapter off with this is what we're doing because it's at the top under chapter 5. What? You're already laughing. That night, Claudia had a dream. She dreamt she was standing over a toilet after having just used it. Instead of roses, She looked down into the toilet bowl full of her own feces. The feces bloomed outward, multiplying like cells, expanding into a thick floral ring around the toilet like a coral reef. She'd let it grow too much. She couldn't flush it away now. Claudia was embarrassed. Not that everyone would know that she ate and shat, but that she couldn't hide it away, as was proper. I cannot with this.
I know. I thought that same thing when I read it. I was like, okay, so obviously, like, eating was, like, frowned upon, but obviously everyone eats to a degree, you know, to stay alive. So everybody shits no matter if they, like, eat protein shakes or whatever. Like, so now at the very end of the book, like, also shitting is unacceptable?
Yeah, you can't shit too much. Just a normal amount. Not a coral reef.
Not
enough. Okay, here's one. Oh, I liked this quote. This is a good quote I wrote down.
Okay.
Luckily, I am a gardener. I understand that some projects bear fruit quickly, while others take many years. I am planting for the future. I did that quote.
I did like that quote. And I remember thinking after I read it that I had actually said something like that, similar to my mom. Like, sometimes your ideas are just like a garden. Like, some grow really quick, and then sometimes you have to tend them for a long time before you see results. So, yeah, I like that one, too.
And I also loved the last line in the book, which was, each morning ask yourself, if I too am mostly water, in which direction shall I flow?
Yes.
I thought that was a great line.
It is a great line. It is. And it's a good closing line, too. And leaves you, like, thinking about stuff. Beautiful. We should have ended with that. I have one more funny one.
Oh, okay. Let's end with a funny one. I like that. Let's do that.
Huh?
You're on.
Oh, this was on page 273. She could hear the murmur of voices in the cafe behind her. To her left, two middle-aged women discussed washing their babies in tap water. Like, as one does.
I don't know, just the way, I tell you what, the way that she phrases things are just so...
And I get we're in a different world, but it's just, it's so much to the point where it takes you out of the story, and I'm like, I can't even.
I actually...
Like, had nothing to do with anything that was happening, and it's never referenced again. It's just like, yeah, and to her left, like, a couple middle-aged women discussed washing their babies in tap water.
I would consider it to be vulgar. My goodness.
What a rad.
All right, I guess that's it. From Chana Porter, The Thick and the Lean.
Thick and the Lean, that's the takeaway.
It's a beautiful cover. Okay.
It is a beautiful cover, but also, like, which character is it supposed to be? Is it supposed to be Reiko, or is it supposed to be Reiko?
I don't know. Whoever, it's just so sexy. It's like, I know that if you can't see it, it's like a beautiful shot of a gorgeous woman, and her body is made out of different fruit.
Yeah, she's like inside of a pear and a pomegranate, and it's just like...
But it, like, looks like her body. Like, the fruit shapes, like, it's just gorgeous. Okay, let's talk about what we rate it.
Oh, what about that? In our books, it goes up to 10 stars, but I feel like we should stick to a 5-star system. Yes.
Give this on Goodreads.
I will rate it as a 2 on Goodreads.
I rated it a 3 on Goodreads.
So group rating 2.5.
We're doing halvesies? Oh, fine.
Well, it's a group rating, right?
Yeah, you're right.
We're mostly on the same page, though.
Yeah,
I
we
think
are.
that
I started reading the Four Horsemen books by Laura. I just know I'm going to say it wrong. Thalassa. It's about the Four Horsemen of the Apocalypse, and it's like a religious, like biblical setting.
like Behind, or
like what?
Like, are we talking like another Left Behind series? Or
Yeah, except like all that's already happened, and this is like way in the future, and the horsemen are coming. So it's kind of like, it has this weird like religious undertone to it that I love, but it's like smut, which is
beautiful.
Right? Yeah, the first book is called Pestilence, and it's about the first horseman. And it's very sexy. And it's like, this author, okay, she knows women. These men are all men that are the most horrible, domineering fuckers that just push you around and treat you like shit. But then when they start to fall in love with the girls, it changes them. So it's like catering to this like need that women change their men into better men. And of course,
I think it's hilarious that his literal name is Pestilence, because that's how most men are to us.
Yeah, it's
like,
and that's what she calls him and she says his name every 5 seconds. Pestilence. Pestilence. Like, it's such a long fucking word. It means plague. It means like illness.
Yeah, I know.
No, I'm saying that in case anybody else doesn't know what pestilence means. It's not like everybody's going around saying pestilence all the time. Just
also, I read or listened to the audiobook of the newest In Death book, Random in Death, by J.D. Robb.
Gosh, I can't believe you're all the way up there at the top of those.
Well, I mean, to be fair, I've been reading these since like 2007.
I know, but I'm just like, I think I'm on book 15. Which book are you on?
I just 58.
So many.
I know.
Man, are you not bored with it yet? Is it still good? Like, just as good?
I don't know if I would say just as good. Like, they're just like any other thing. It's like there are some that are better than others, but no, this one was good. And it's like if no one's read them before, it's like a futuristic murder mystery book series. It's basically the SVU of book series. There's a million of them, but they're good every time.
Yeah.
Like, and it keeps going, and you get to follow along with the characters, like, and it's good writing, and it's like never too high of stakes to where you can just like really enjoy it. Like, you get the spice, you get the mystery, you get some comedic relief. It's everything you want. And it's just like my junk food read, where like I can just show up, get a good story, and enjoy all the characters that I've been with for years and years and years and years.
What?
She comes out with like at least 2 a year of those.
Like, every time I read one, she writes 4. So
maybe we should set up our next book for our next read, our next episode. We'll be reading The Fourth Wing, or I should say I'll be reading The Fourth Wing because Lita already read it like a cheater. So I'll be prioritizing that one, but
you need to read The Four Horsemen, please.
Okay.
You need to read them, because let me tell you, they're just amazing, and you will not be able to put them down. And you'll be like, what happens next? What gross sex is happening next? I want to know.
Okay.
And then we can do something on The Four Horsemen once we've read all of the men, the horsemen. Oh, and the second book, she calls him War. That's his name. Like, they just call him by the name. And the third one is famine, but I always think famine.
Okay, in this book, in Thick and the Lean, every time it was in the kitchen girl and she's talking about Henry, the way that it's spelled is Henray. So every time I saw that name, I was like, Henry. Henry. You're the king. Henry.
That's how I picture Olivia Wilde talking to Harry Styles now forever. Henry, come back to bed.
You know they broke up. They're not even together.
Well, yeah, but I'm still gonna think about them.
But also his name is Harry, not Henry.
I'm still gonna think about them from time to time. Every time I see them, I'll be thinking, oh, you guys.
And
no! Unprofessional. How could she do that to Ted Lasso?
I mean, Jason Sudeikis,
he's just the most adorable man. Like, I
adorable.
I love him so much.
He is like the epitome of like normal white guy, but like somehow still hot and funny. Like, it's like Paul Rudd, right? Like,
oh no, Paul Rudd is like in his own universe. He's so cute.
Like, he's funny and goofy and silly, but he's also like buff and ripped and like.
He's not funny. He is hilarious. He has some of the comedic timing I've ever seen. He is always making me laugh my butt off.
I feel like Paul Rudd is like my like male spirit animal because he's always just like lip syncing really dramatically, and that's like.
Speaking of Shrek, we are reading Get in My Swamp, which is a ogre erotic novel. So excited to read it.
Which everyone was asking for. The whole world was asking for.
Oh, yeah. Asking for it, right? It's going to be absolutely hilarious. And if you want to buy it, you have to buy it directly from the website or from TikTok Shop because it is banned on Amazon.
Okay, but I found it on Amazon.
No, but there's a thing that said it's like, this is banned on Amazon. Like a whole thing on their website about it. It was like...
I think they're just like trying to beef up their things. Like right when you told me that, I looked it up and I found it on Amazon immediately.
Well, maybe it was when they made that video or something.
Maybe.
Yeah, because it was like a review from somebody.
Like why? Okay, number one, why are you doing a Shrek themed romance novel, but also to call it like Get in My Swamp? Like you don't want to associate your nethers with a swamp. Like,
well, that's just the Shrek thing. That's the draw, is the Shrek, because there's and also the younger generation. There's this whole thing about sexy Shrek, like Shrek dancing, Shrek wearing leather, like things.
Yeah, I get it in that one. Which movie is it when he like turns into a person? He's all buff and everybody's like, oh hey Shrek.
When he's a guy, when he's a human.
Yeah.
The human is okay. Let's just calm down here. That's what it is. Because he is too good looking. And he's even got that chest hair. Like, oh. I can't do that with my son. That sounds more like a propeller. Yours sounded so sexy. Do it again. Oh, okay, I'm gonna do it. All right. I gotta breathe because I'm laughing.
You sound like a bird Chewbacca.
Okay, do it.
Oh my
God,
I think you're a little.
I'm gonna do it seriously. Like, I'm really gonna be serious. All right, do it again so I can hear it. Okay. Whew. Whew. Okay. Not sexy. It's more like it's more like a feral cat purr than a.
Like, get your motor running.
All revved up with no place to go.
Oh. Well, at least you have a husband you can go jump if you want to.
Yeah, okay. I will. I'll jump on him eventually. Not now, though.
Where I just live in the land of the perpetually single.
Men are so stupid, Relu, because you are such a catch.
Well, thanks.
And you have like princess syndrome.
Huh?
Like you have princess syndrome.
Princess syndrome? What does that mean?
That's where you like just wake up beautiful and you're like, oh, I'm so sleep addled and I just happen to look like this when I wake up. This
Whatever.
perfect way my hair falls and just like sleep riddled eyelashes and you're adorable. God damn it.
Well, thank you. Maybe I should make a Yelp page and you can leave some positive reviews. Yeah, just like leave me some positive reviews. Like, would date her. 5 stars. For my dating profile.
They had rating on dating sites with like comments. That's what they need. That's what they're missing.
No, that's the thing. Like would date again. Very fun.
Did not show up. Asked me to get in his trunk.
The pickup lines that I get, I feel like I just like need to make a whole slew of TikTok videos of just like the weird shit that guys say to me on dating apps. Like, I swear to God.
That's because they're not trying to date you.
But just by not a douchebag.
Yeah, not somebody into octopus porn.
Inside joke. Oh no.
Ew. Thank you.
That's a good story too. You guys will never know. You just Oh God. You're my favorite.
You're my favorite.
Yay!
5 stars. This was fun. It's midnight here, so I'm gonna go to bed.
Yep.
After I clean up the dog puke from 2 hours ago.
Oh my God, we should have paused.
I know, but we didn't. I don't think I've moved in like 2 hours, like seriously.
Bye, Bookmate.
That's our sign off. We'd be so good at ASMR.
Bye, Bookmate. I love you.
I love you more.
Bye. Bye.